Thomas the Hermit here, and I'm inside Sacred Heart Church. It's probably around 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, the reason that I am here early is because the man who opens the church lets me and has let me know how early the church is open, and I'm able to come to the church. Today they're going to have cleaning, so they put a few lights on for the people, the volunteers that are coming to clean the church, and I'm able to be in the church before everyone gets here and do a little video. Now, the video that I'm making today is of a very particular, important, and sensitive nature. Now, I am putting out this information because I told my audience that I would tell them everything, and I want there to be a correct record of the things that are happening to me. Now, what I'm going to talk about today is my experiences in the mystical experience called Rapture. I got stopped. I didn't say, that something stopped me. It's just that the prayer reached a particular thing, and then I just froze up, and my spirit. Now, I'm not claiming anything really super here, although the experience of rapture itself is very coveted by contemplatives, but I really don't think, the experience doesn't mean that I have arrived. It does mean I have got somewhere, and I do believe I've got somewhere. That's why I started this channel, because I do believe that I have lived a prayer life and that I have advanced in that prayer life, and I can share with others what I have learned, and I can share with other lay people and encourage other lay people to also pursue this path. Okay? Now, Teresa of Avila has a very powerful description of what rapture is. Let me take a look at that. I'm going to be reading from the life of Teresa of Jesus. For this great blessing, and doing our utmost to draw near to him in a practical way, the Lord gathers up the soul, just, we might say, as the clouds gather up the vapors from the earth, and raises it up till it is right out of itself. I've heard that it is in this way that the clouds or the sun gathers up the vapors. And the clouds rises to heaven and takes the soul with it, and begins to reveal to it things concerning the kingdom that he has prepared for it. I do not know if the comparison is an exact one. Okay, so those are part of the words of Teresa. And I'm going to read another section for you. So Teresa of Avila would have these experiences of rapture. Now, the beautiful thing about Teresa is when she relates her experiences of rapture, it's a very matter of fact, and that's the way I want to talk to you today. This is matter of fact, okay? I will get into a minute my exact experience. You can make your own comparisons. I should like, with the help of God, to be able to describe the difference between union and rapture, or elevation, or what they call flights of the spirit, or transport. It is all one. Okay, so there's different words that mystics have used to describe these experiences. I mean that these different names all refer to the same thing, which is also called ecstasy. It is much more beneficial than union. The effects it produces are far more important, and it has a great many more operations. For union gives the impression of being just the same at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end, and it all happens interiorly. But the ends of these raptures are of a high degree, and the effects they produce are both interior and exterior. May the Lord explain this, as he has explained everything else, for I should certainly know nothing of it, if his majesty had not shown me the ways and manners in which it came to some extent to be described. Okay? Now, don't be messed up by Teresa's language, all right? She's being sincere, okay? She's really saying that this is a hard thing to describe. I do not necessarily understand everything there is about this, and I'm describing to you what has happened to me, okay? All right, now, Teresa began to have these kinds of experiences. Now, she may have had some tastes in the beginning. Now, a taste is like the Lord showing you what you could have to make you hunger for more. And you might get those in the beginning, a few tastes, and that will cause you to pursue God harder. That is not the actual, they are real experiences, but they're not experiences that are occurring because you have arrived at a particular place. Now, when you have arrived at a particular place, the experience happens more natural, and it's not something that God has to, how am I trying to say this, have to give you a super favor. Now, they are called favors. They are favors from the Lord. Rapture is a favor. What rapture does is it actually changes you in that moment that it happens. And John of the Cross warns us that if there's no lasting effect, then it wasn't a real rapture. And Teresa herself says that the devil would produce fake raptures and try to fool her. But she knew that they weren't real because they would produce a coldness within her. And John of the Cross, of course, warns about people, having raptures, having them in public, everyone can see, all these kinds of things. Now, I am sharing you what is happening to me because I said that I would keep up a video account of what has been happening to me. Thomas the Hermit has lived most of his life in the dark night. When I had dyslexia, or I have dyslexia, and in the days that I had dyslexia, there were not a lot of programs for dyslexia. So my parents, at the age of 6, sent me to a boarding school, and that started my dark night. And the dark night was not just being sent at such an early age away from my family, but it was an occurrence of many things that happened to me in childhood, and then by the time I was a teenager, I was a pretty confused individual. I really was. That's when Jesus Christ stepped into my life. And that one video that I made about Jesus loving me and healing my mind, that happened back in 1981. And those were my experiences. Since then, God has plunged me into one dark night after another. Now, of course, these first dark nights were just something that happened to a child, but the Lord has spoken to me, and through another person in prayer, that was part of his preparation so that I would have a more unique intimacy with God. I'm not happy about that, to be honest. I would much rather have had a much more enjoyable childhood. I really think that at some point in my life, I had a mastoid infection when I was around 5 from swimmer's ear, and that used to kill kids. They had to remove 2 hearing bones and an eardrum. I have partial hearing in this ear from that mastoid infection. I was by one of those chapels that are in the hospital. This was in a military hospital. My father was Air Force. And I didn't know a lot about God, but I thought, well, God's in the chapel. I wanted to go in the chapel, but we tried to get in the chapel and it was locked. I felt a presence emanating from the chapel. And I felt that the Lord was saying that he could take me. He could take my life then, and it would save me a lot of suffering. It's not the exact impression that I got. It's kind of close. But that if I lived, that I would have a lot of suffering. I'm not trying to claim anything. I'm just telling you what happened to me. I am by no means a good person. I am a sinner. I'm not telling you that because I'm ultra humble. I am humble through humiliations, but I am not lying to you when I tell you that I'm not a good person. As a child, I was a very disruptive child. I was very problematic. You would not want to have had me as a child. But in any case, I have lived in the dark night most of my life. After I had my born-again experience in 1980, shortly after that, about a year and a half after that, after having a wonderful honeymoon with the Lord, he began to put me into the dark night of the senses. This is not the famous dark night of the soul. This is the lesser one called the dark night of the senses, and I've spent about 30 years there. And I will go into this some other time. But for now, I'm sharing about the little raptures that are happening to me. Well, what is happening to me? Well, about 3 years, the dark night of the senses turned off, which is an indicator, according to John of the Cross, that I had entered into what is called the illuminative way. The illuminative way is a grace-filled period right before the dark night of the soul. And I've been there the last 3 years. In this particular place, the favors have been increasing. I began to experience these kinds of raptures and ecstatic joy, and I was immediately afraid of them. I'm much more comfortable following the advice of John of the Cross than Teresa of Avila. John of the Cross says kind of like, put your nose to the grindstone, live by faith, don't worry about supernatural things, ignore them. Teresa says that raptures speed you along the path of perfection a lot faster. Now, I'm not saying that John of the Cross forbid rapture. I'm just saying that his approach and Teresa's, they're like the mother and father of Carmelite, Discalced Carmelite spirituality. You know, in every family, the mother and the father have a different perspective. And certainly in Carmelite theology, they do have a different perspective. And I'm more comfortable with John's perspective. I want to do ascetical practices and pray and let faith and draw closer to God that way. I'm still homeless right now. I'm still coming to the church and praying. I'm making videos. I'm looking for the Lord's will. It seems to be picking up a lot of power and energy, and a lot of transformation is happening in me. But no, I have not obtained that job that I was seeking. So as I've been praying, and as I've been going through my thing and praying for the subscribers and future subscribers, and as I've been praying for the people of this parish, and as I've been praying for my situation to change, I like to pace and pray. That's one of the ways I like to pray. And as I'm walking around this church, I like got stopped. I didn't say, that something stopped me. It's just that the prayer reached a particular thing, and then I just froze up, and my spirit seemed to lift upwards, and my body was just all quiet and immovable. This is kind of the experience that happened to me. It happens really fast. It doesn't last very long. Sometimes a few seconds, sometimes maybe a half a minute, maybe longer. I'm not really aware of time, but I really don't think it happens very much. But after it happens, I'm different. This thing about living in the dark night, the Lord's trying to move me into the power of his resurrection. That's why I made the glorious mystery rosary meditation, because it's more about living in God's power, whereas I have been living most of my life in the dark night, and God wants me out of that. And to be frank with you, I can't move out of that on my own, and he knows that. So he's giving me these little favors to spur me on to the next level, so that I will be able to do his will and be not a depressing hermit, but a very joy-filled hermit. This is Thomas the Hermit, by God's grace, experiencing little raptures. Say a prayer for me. I'm praying for you. I'll talk to you later.